Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Broadbelt SpeaX. I am Miss SpeaX, and Broadbelt is on his way. We don't know if he's going to make it or not, but we're going to keep it pushing because we have Mr. Eddie and JT, the best comedians in the world.
What's my last name?
Pepitone.
What?
Pepitone.
Pepitone.
And then, you know, the reason why I didn't say the last name, do you really know? Because
yours.
Yeah, well, you guys, I was messing up before and I didn't want to mess up your last name. So I went ahead and left it out.
Mine is Chappelle.
Okay, we just going to go with Chappelle.
What's JT Habersaat?
You get a check for being a Chappelle. But I'm going to let y'all just go ahead and tell us who you are, let our audience know about your career, and then we'll just...
Who are you?
Who are you? Who are you, Eddie?
I'm Eddie Pepitone, and I fear a lot of things.
Oh my God.
Tiffany, I fear things. I get up in the morning and I'm just like, oh my God, what the hell is... Why am I up? You know, why get up?
Because this world is crazy. So why?
It's so
why do we get up?
great. And that's why I do comedy. So that's a good jumping point.
Okay.
There's your co-host.
Okay, now that I held it down for a minute, and you know that's what women do. We hold it down. Yes, that's what we do. So we're just now starting, and they're giving us, they're letting our audience know who they are.
What's your name? Martin?
Yes.
Okay. So Martin just got here, and I just want to say this. It's a different energy now.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
It's a different energy. I was getting real comfortable with Tiffany. I was going to ask her if she wanted to take a ride around Greensboro with me.
And you're not going to ask me now?
No, now I can't, because Martin's energy now has made me want to be a man's man.
Oh,
I want to talk about electronics. Now I want to talk about pipes.
Yeah.
Like
pipes. Yeah. Let's talk about smoking pipes or like
not
industrial
smoking.
piping.
Anyway, we were talking about. I'm sorry.
You, Eddie.
No, we were talking to Martin. We were talking about, why I do comedy. And I think the biggest reason might be because the world is so goddamn insane.
Right.
It is so insane, and it's so corrupt. And I think comedy's job is to speak out about the corruption and point out the insanity. That's what I really think a comedian's job is. Speak out about the corruption and, just the way people are getting... can we curse on this podcast?
Curse all you want.
Okay, so... gosh darn it.
I like that.
No, the amount of corruption and evil that goes on in the world should be called out. Like my friend, here's a for instance, my friend today, JT, you could go. My friend today forwarded me an article about a California, I live in LA, California Landlords Association that actively undercuts tenants' rights constantly. Whenever there's a bill before a legislature about bringing rents down in LA, these motherfuckers thwart the bill. They put in heavy money, and this is how this fucking country runs, right? The people with money run it. And everybody else is, just barely fucking surviving, and it's gotten worse and worse.
Yes.
And I think that drives my comedy, that and just talking about my sexual impotence.
Okay.
Impotence.
Before we get into your
Sexual capitalism.
Yes. Yeah. Right. I'm impotent in this capitalism.
Yeah.
And I blame capitalism. My wife is like, it's you. And I'm like, no, it's these oligarchs, honey. That's why I can't get an erection.
And we're going to throw it at JT.
JT is ready to jump in. As a prop comic and puppeteer, it's an honor for us sometimes, but we somehow find a way to make it work. No, I don't know. I mean, Eddie is more outspokenly political on stage than me. but I started this thing about a decade ago called the Altercation Punk Comedy Tour. And so I kind of had this tag as like the punk rock guy. And so that informs our shared sensibilities, even though we're both ranty, but in slightly different ways. Eddie's definitely more political on stage. I hold back on my politics, even though we share most of the same worldview, I think. But mine is a little bit more pointed in terms of angst, I think, specifically at societal, rather than the shitheads in charge. But it somehow works. I think we kind of have a shared viewpoint that also with comics, when you team up, I think you don't want to have comics that are too similar. That's something I think you're aware of. Like it's coming from a similar place, but you don't want people that come to see Eddie certainly don't want just a different version of Eddie in me. And so I think, we're just kind of like-minded comics that enjoy each other's company. And so the teaming has been pretty great.
And how long y'all been a team? When did y'all connect?
2019, he messaged me when I was on vacation in Cape Cod.
You don't have to always bring that up.
Well, I was relaxing.
No, he was always
for the first time in my life.
Why did you message me during your vacation?
Right? I was relaxing, yeah. Well, he said, do you want to do some shows together? I said, absolutely. And he said, how about in 2 weeks? And I said, you're out of your fucking mind. I can't do stuff in 2 weeks.
Did I say that? Yeah.
Yeah, you did. It was in August. But by October, we were on the road.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of...
That's cool.
We did the East Coast, and we did some cities he's never been to before, like New Orleans. And
I had never been to New Orleans, which was such a pleasure.
It was great.
Go to,
Yeah, sold out show at the Dragon's Den.
Okay.
And we got accosted by a couple of German fans the next day.
Oh, that
on
was
the street,
funny.
Suburban Street. That was, Mr. Eddie Pepitone. And they came running up. They're like, your show was very adequate.
I said, yes, adequate. I said, you people don't have a sense of humor.
I said, we do not know what you mean by you people.
I mean the German
They
people.
were so brutally German that they were like,
What's funny?
It was just, Mr. Eddie Pepitone, your show was, we got our money's worth. It was all okay. And then he's like, did you fly in for the show? They're like, absolutely not.
That's right. That's right. Right.
And then you're like, this is JT. Like, oh yeah, you were there too. Okay. It was so German.
How long have you been doing comedy, JT?
That's a good question. I started, I dabbled when I was in college a little bit. I had like a sketch improv group called the Five Drunken Immortals in New York. And we did we were big fans of Kids in the Hall. And so we did a lot of sketch and kind of improv stuff and toward college stuff. And I was like 21, 22. And I dabbled a little bit with stand-up there, but not much. After 2 or 3 years, I was pretty much it. And then I moved to Austin, Texas in 2005. And in 2007, I decided I wanted to start and stand up for real. So about 12 years trying it for real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
how's the journey been? The part when you said for real, the comedy for real.
I say for real because, I that college stuff I count as kind of an introductory. I learned a lot doing that, but wasn't pursuing it. It was for fun. It was college. It wasn't I was doing radio, actually. I was, going to school for radio, and I worked in radio for many years. And moving to Austin, I decided I'm going to try comedy as like a career more so than just a fun here in their outlet. I thought kind of an unorthodox journey, I guess you could say, because I didn't really want to do comedy clubs. I wanted to kind of do my own thing. So I mainly did rock clubs when I started, and that's where the punk rock tag kind of stuck. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing stuff around Austin, just booking my own shows, mainly for my rock and roll friends. So I'm friends with a lot of people in bands. And then when independent comics that I admired would come to town, like Doug Stanhope or Janine Garofalo or Brian Posehn, they'd say, who's the weird person doing weird stuff? And everybody said, oh, talk to JT. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of skipped the normal route, which you're supposed to do, which is go to open mics and go to the comedy clubs and work your way up to hosting and then a feature set and then a headliner set. And so I had some weird animosity from Austin comics that are like, hey, you're not doing it the right way. That's not fair. But also I was like, well, fuck you. Like, I don't care. I'm not wasting time. I'm going to book my own thing. And if that works to my advantage, then hooray for me. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And then eventually started doing traditional venues more and more when I could do them on my terms. Mm-hmm. And then, Eddie's, you started in sketch too and improv largely, right?
I started.
He's a thespian.
When
Whoever was doing that, it was a good laugh.
That's Jenny. When I started, I was 5 when JFK was shot, and I saw Jackie O. I saw Jackie O. just jump into that back seat. I don't know if you remember that from the Magruder.
You know, my great grandfather almost got shot.
Call back before we started rolling. That's very good.
Anyway, it was Zapruder, not Magruder. Sorry. But the Zapruder film, and when Jackie O jumped into that back seat because she didn't want to get shot, I said, I want to be a comic. And I was only 5 years old. I said, what a funny country. You know, they kill the president in broad daylight in Dallas. By the way, we saw the Rolling Stones. I saw the Rolling Stones for the first time ever in Dallas, their possibly last American tour. And if you know the song Sympathy for the Devil, there's a line that said, how does it go? We killed Kennedy. Who killed Kennedy? After all, it was you and me. And they didn't do that line in Dallas. And I was like, what the fuck? I was waiting for that line, and the Stones, like, didn't do it. Like, is it too soon to talk about it in Dallas? You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't know what the hell that was. But getting back to, you know, when I started, it was way before JT.
Before I was born.
Is that right?
When did you start, though?
I started when I was 20.
Okay.
And I'm 63 right now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so
Now, it has
Take
this
it
been
easy,
full
everybody.
time? Has this been
Look, people get old. People age.
Exactly. Are
I feel guilty about my age, especially in fucking Hollywood. I can't say my age in Hollywood. I have to say I have the aging disease and that I'm really 27. You know.
So yours is the opposite of Benjamin Button. Yours is going the other way.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I didn't see the Ben Button movie. No, but so I started in stand-up when I was 20. I had dropped out of college because I had a nervous fucking breakdown.
Okay.
I mean, I'm
True story?
This is a true story.
Okay.
I would look in a mirror. I was going to Fordham University. I would look in the mirror and I had no idea who I was. And this does dovetail into comedy. It was because my dad was this kind of domineering guy who wanted me to be a doctor, and I was just doing what he said.
Yeah.
And I rebelled against it in that way that I was like, I couldn't do it, you know, and I had to have a nervous breakdown. And I continue that tradition of having nervous breakdowns.
Yeah, he does it once a year.
I do it every show, just about.
So that's consistency.
Yeah, no, but it really was this thing in me that said, no, you're not going to fucking live your dad's life. You're going to do your own thing.
Yeah. So had you already felt like you was funny and I could make it as a comedian?
What's it to you?
I just need to know.
I mean, what the hell is
people
it to
want to
you?
know. The people want to Eddie, the people want to know. Did you think you was funny? Did you already
Tiffany?
think you was funny?
Holy shit, I'm trying to relax here. No, yeah, the way I dealt with a lot of family shit. My mom was manic depressive. Now it's called bipolar, but my mom was in and out of institutions since I was a young kid. So that was very heavy, you know, in our family. And my dad was kind of a Sicilian rageaholic, you know. So the way I just kind of dealt with the world was through being funny, you know, and making my dad laugh a lot, you know. And then my friends, I started really making people laugh, I would say, in junior high school, which is like, I was really funny, I think, not to brag, by the age 9, 10. I think the funniest I was in my life was 11. I wish I would have taped some of that stuff.
So that's when you.
I was hilarious at
So
11.
you was just being yourself, and then people would laugh, and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah, and I would make up stuff like on the spot, and I continued to do that. You know, just be really improvisational. I've always been like that. I joined improv groups. What I want to say quickly about stand-up is that I started doing stand-up when I was 20, but stand-up is terrifying. when I was younger, I would throw up before every set. I'm not kidding. And I would ask myself, why are you doing this to yourself? And I didn't know anything else, but stand-up was so terrifying that I stopped doing it for a while. I studied acting. I got into an improv group. I started doing all kinds of theater. And then I went back to stand-up once I had the self-confidence to do it, because stand-up as a 20-year-old for me was too difficult.
Wow.
Too difficult. It was too scary.
Being on stage, everyone looking at you.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a solitary thing to be on stage.
Because it's all on you. Right.
Yeah, it's all on you. And I wanted other people to blame. So when I was in an improv group, I would be with my buddy going, yeah, she sucks, doesn't she? That's why that scene went down the shitter.
There's nothing wrong with that. You just passing the joy around. Yeah. So for JT, was it the same where you were young too? At the early age, being funny? And
it's funny because I remember being in like 5th grade and saying, you know, they have the whole, what do you want to be when you grow up type thing, right? And what, astronaut or whatever, the cliche. I remember in 5th grade saying stand-up comic, which is strange. I don't even know if I knew what that meant, but I was like, I want to be a stand-up comic. And I remember
Are you trying to one-up me now?
maybe
5th grade?
5th grade. And I remember
All right, so mine was 4th grade.
I remember a peer of mine said, "You're funny, man, but I don't know if you'll make it. It's real tough." And that stuck in my head. That like lodged in my brain.
Now, who said that? Are you?
Some dude, like some friend, some 11-year-old friend.
Yeah.
who knew at 11?
Yeah.
How did he know it? Was he smoking a cigar already? What is a tough business?
Yeah, he had a monocle. There's just some kid, and he was just like, yeah. And I remember I made him laugh all the time. So I was just like, what? Like, you know, and so, but that's stuck in my brain, like that lodged psychologically in there as like a, well, I'll show you type of thing. And again, I didn't pursue comedy as a career until I was 32, which is pretty old as far as most comics start in their 20s for sure. But the cool thing about comedy too, I think, is the older you get, it's one of the few careers where when you're older, it can be seasoning. You know what I mean? Like there's not like acting and stuff. You could argue, oh, you're past your prime or whatever. Or even musicians, you know. But so, like Eddie, you know, it's funny you say that about you diminish your age in Hollywood. You feel weird about it because with stand-up, though, the older you get, you think about the legends, George Carlin, and just all these people. The old Joan Rivers. The older they get, the more you want to see them, because their life experiences seasons their material. And they just get better and better with it. So stand-up for me is one of the few things where it's not always a detriment if you're older. To some degree. Like I've been in the game 12 years, right? And I'm 45. To me, being in the game 12 years and 45, I think I'm a better comic than someone who started when they're 18 and now they're 30. Just in terms of your life view and your experiences are broader. And so I think age with stand-up is a benefit in some way. But as far as I was always a writer. Like I wrote stories and stuff when I was real young. I played Dungeons and Dragons a lot when I was like 10 or 11 years old, and always like had a lot of daydream stuff. And so I was kind of always a writer first and foremost, but the same thing with the dad. Like I remember we would go to friends' houses and there was a kid who was like, I don't know, if I was like 12, he was probably 14 or 15. And I remember this kid would be like the life of the party and make all the adults laugh. And that made me mad because I was like, I should be making my dad laugh. I don't like that you're making my dad laugh.
That's jealous.
Yeah, it was like a good thing, though. It was kind of like because I was more of a quieter kid. I was never like the center of attention kid. I'm still not. I'm very, part of the reason we get along good, I think, too, is that we're not, off stage, we're very chill. And, you know, just,
but I love being the center of attention.
Yeah, he does sometimes. But you know, the Jim Carrey thing of like that, the zany, always on people are exhausting, and they certainly exist in comedy. I don't like to be around them. I like to be a person and then when you're on stage, it's go time, right? But I remember distinctly part of my chiming up was wanting to make my father laugh. And my mom too, but mainly my dad. And I was like, I can be funnier than this fucking dude. And so then I started speaking up, you know, and I was making him laugh. And so that was kind of an earlier thing, that kind of.
That was your first comedy set.
Kind of.
There you go.
Yeah, you know, and you just learn, I don't think you can learn timing, but like you can hone timing and stuff like that coming up through that. Just knowing when to drop the joke and how to be funny, or whatever. I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation, I guess, about learning versus what you're born with. Because my brother is an architect, and he's very much not outgoing like I am.
They're not funny people, architects.
Architects Frank Lloyd Wright had a lot of zingers. But he's more of a laid back. He doesn't want to be the center of attention, but he's wickedly funny, and we share the same comedic sensibilities. And so we'll crack. He'll say shit that I'm like, that is funnier than anything I've heard this week, but only amongst us. Like he'll say it, in comfortable company, I guess.
Right.
Eddie got something to say.
I was going to say that people who aren't comedians say fucking hilarious things. Mm-hmm. And I always say to them, it's easy to do that. To fucking say something hilarious when people aren't watching you in seats and they've paid money. It's very easy to say things off the cuff. I'm hilarious on the street. I am hilarious, on the street.
That's the title king of the street jokes.
In the car, I'm very funny.
That's true.
I'm very funny in elevators.
But you're hilarious on stage, or you wouldn't continue to have such success in your career.
Yes, because I finally learned how to be funny on stage, which is kind of just accepting yourself and not being afraid,
Let me ask you this, because I didn't know the part you were talking about earlier where you said you had serious fear about stand-up.
Really?
Yeah, not to that.
We should talk more.
We should talk more. We just worked in Chicago with Bobcat Goldthwait, and I had interviewed him a long time ago, and he's a friend of Eddie's. And Bobcat had told me when I interviewed him that he also had moments of like when he was in Police Academy and all that. He's like, they said, "I should do stand up." And he's like, "I don't know how to write material." And they said, "Well, you're just funny. Just go out there and be you. You're just funny." And that's how I feel about you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you certainly have written material, but you go out there and you just go. And live in that space for the hour, and then you're done.
Right.
So how did you, when you first started going back into stand-up, did you have written stuff you studied specifically? Right.
Yes. When I was really nervous about performing when I was younger, I would say characters like, okay, this is the guy who's afraid to get a haircut. I remember that was one of my first fucking things. I don't know what that was about. And then I did a brain cell who was a creative brain cell committing suicide because he had to do this intense math problem.
I want to hear it.
He couldn't take it, and he threw himself off the medulla cortex. So it was all those abstract bits. I didn't really go into my life. It took me a while and a lot of therapy,
When did you start kind of like going in the moment, though? Like you do now, just kind of.
Oh, I think that was always with me, but I would say I don't know. I don't know when I really felt. It takes a long time to feel comfortable.
Yeah,
is all I'll say on stage to be a stand-up. And the guy I look at who's the most comfortable and is Chappelle. Yeah. Like every Chappelle special, regardless of the political stuff that people are talking about these days, but the guy is so authentic and so fucking confident. It's amazing. And my all-time favorite comic. It's very close between George Carlin and Richard Pryor. Pryor I love because he brought like pathos into his comic. Like he would do the junkie and the wino. Mm-hmm. And he would it was more than comedy. It was like he would blend like tragedy and comedy and also just so funny,
But, it's those... experiences that you go through. So like even the both of you, when you talk about just through your childhood, then coming up and then getting to that point where you're comfortable with having those discussions on stage, because it's a conversation. The same way we are sitting here when you're on stage and people enjoy that. They laugh because they relate to it.
That's right.
I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about certain things, you can tell who in your crowd and your audience is a little out there.
Right. Like I'll start off a show and say, round of applause if you've been in the room when your mother had electroshock therapy. And there'll be a very small smattering,
Okay, so
Most comics,
My face when you was
most comics will just do round of applause if you like drinking.
right, it's
Or if
something
you're
easy.
drinking here.
Yeah.
But I go
You
deeper.
like drinking.
Yeah. Is there anything you've ever said on stage that you said, "Oh, I
Regret
should
it?
have pulled back"? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you share? Do you?
Yeah.
I'm
Go
don't
through
wanna
you guys
revisit?
if you could find something.
What stuff that we
Might have shared and you might, they didn't go over too well. Sure.
Or it's
done
too
that.
touchy.
Yeah.
Because they was like, "Oh, they just not getting it because it's a little
Yeah.
too."
I guess for me
dark.
it is stuff like that when I get too intimate about my problems or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm trying. I don't know if I could be specific now about it, but yeah, sometimes I think I'll make the audience uncomfortable by talking about some issue I have, with intimacy or
But that's
something.
what Dave Chappelle does. He makes it very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
He's
he don't
amazing.
care.
He doesn't care. Yeah, he's
That's
great.
part of the difference, though, I think, between a comic that's pretty good and a comic that can be great is to show that vulnerability and to reveal that stuff.
Yeah,
Like to be truly naked on stage. Like I deal with depression, and that's something.
So do I.
Like you're not,
Jesus.
so you're trying to grab it all.
Fourth grade, and now I deal with
I did too. He said he likes to be the center of attention.
This is why I do the driving. But that's not something that I want to focus my material on, but it's not something I shy away with either. It's something that I'm comfortable enough to admit because it's a human thing and I'm not ashamed of it. It's just it goes with the package. That being said, there's no specific thing that I regret saying, but like my last special was about 4 years ago, and I lit into millennials pretty hard. As kind of an older guy.
In the background.
Yeah, and I'm getting ready to record a new special in 2 weeks, and so I kind of address that because there's a degree of me now that it's been like 4 or 5 years since my last special where like I feel a little bad that I went after them a little bit.
Should, I think.
But now, well, whatever. I don't want to ruin the bit, but I kind of address it. But I also double down on it in a weird way. So I don't know. There's a little bit of that, which is just growth. There's just a degree of. At the time, I was like, "Oh, you kids today," and then now it's 5 years later. I'm like, "Oh, well, you did some interesting stuff, like during the elections and stuff, as far as." Like trolling people with TikTok and stuff that I couldn't do, and I'm like, "Well, good on you." Like that's. They embraced technology in a way that at my age would be a detriment. Like I don't have those skills. So not so much. I don't have anything regrettable that I've put out there, but I guess a little bit of hindsight 2020 in terms of just like, oh, okay. But you learn from that too.
In my day, Twitter was just us yelling out the window in Brooklyn. That was a tweet like, "Hey, you fucking suck," and that was a tweet.
That's very Brooklyn.
And
that's very geographic Twitter is what it's called. Whereas in Georgia, they'd be like, "Hey, bless your heart."
And it would get retweeted. It would get retweeted by saying, "No, you fucking suck," and that was a retweet.
That was very
That is great. You need to do that joke all the time.
He said
So
something
funny.
last night on stage that was hilarious. He said, "Yeah, we're comics. All we do is we're funny and we sleep."
Yeah. You know what?
That's pretty much it.
So that makes me think. So when you sitting around talking, especially amongst other comics, and you say something funny, do anybody ever steal it? And then they use
Anybody
it?
steal it? No, not if they're
Because
friends.
you're just amongst talking. So it's
Comics, this is what I learned. There's a couple of comics here too, is that when I'm hanging out with comics is when I come up with stuff.
Really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I start, Eric's a comic. I start coming up with stuff when we're talking.
Really?
You know what I mean? Like, it's because I don't come up with stuff with you, but it's when comedic minds just start going in your
right.
That energy.
Well,
yeah.
driving through the country is so fun with this fucker because we just will try and crack each other up all day long. I remember we drove
We do a lot of driving.
from LA to San Francisco and we're going through like the the kind of scenic areas of California, like all the groves and everything.
That haven't been burnt down
Yeah,
yet.
it haven't burned down yet. And it had been a quiet stretch. I don't know if you remember this. And we were just chilling. It had been like 10 minutes just chilling in the car. And then we go by this like nice scenic farm. And I just rolled the window down and yelled out, "You're all sheep!" Because there were all these sheep there. And you fucking popped so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Been silent. And I laughed.
Because I yell at audiences and call them sheep.
"You're all sheep!" And we're just yelling at actual sheep. And so moments
That
like
just
that,
cracked me up.
it was moments like that. And we self-narrate. We have this self-narration of our adventures.
Oh, I would like to hear.
Well, it's just like we'll be riding along and I'll just start going, 2 men riding through the heartland of America, both hanging on for dear life. Are their loved ones really in love with them? Like just doing this stream of consciousness things about our life, you know?
We were in this nightmare hotel last night.
Oh my God.
It was it was a hotel. The elevator didn't work, and the lady's like, "I'll do you a solid. You can take the service elevator." Which, good.
Was that your imitation of her? Was that her voice?
I mean,
That
she just had a deep voice.
She kind of had a rant. Do that naturally. My instincts.
What's her name, Gertha?
We got to go through these. It's like go through the double doors, make a right, look for the skeleton or whatever, and go up the fucking. And so we're going past where they're washing the laundry and everything, and we get in, and it's just quiet again, and just out of nowhere.
You don't want to see the inner workings of a hotel.
No, you don't.
You know, when we had to go past where they're doing all the laundry and they're crying. They're crying, doing the laundry. You know, and I'm just like, oh, God.
Dead canary.
Are they the people who bring the towels?
And so we get in this rickety service elevator, and we're going up, and you just 2 men elevating to their doom. It's like an abandoned mop in the fucking thing with this.
I get into my room, I turn on the light above the mirror, and it's just flickering. You know, it's doing that flickering thing.
Haunted hotel.
And
It was bad.
the room smelled like smoke. I hate that shit. You
We're
know?
usually pretty particular, but we're not high maintenance.
Yeah, that was a shitty
It
one.
was a bad one. We let the we're hands off in that booking. But that stuff keeps you grounded. I said, well,
Yes, it
because I really am in
Like
the
I need more shit to keep me grounded.
The stories are what attracts me to this job, you know. And that like pandemic lockdown, everybody's like, "Do you miss comedy?" I'm like, "I do miss comedy, but I really miss traveling with my friend more than anything. Like the travel and being in different places and meeting new people and that type of stuff. That's the stuff that informs what makes it a great job for me. You know, I love the job. If it
Meeting
came
people
down
all
to,
over is nice.
You know, if I could only do comedy, but I couldn't travel with it, I don't think I'd do comedy. I think I'd do something else.
Now, did the pandemic give you more material?
Oh, no.
No.
Did it?
It almost ruined me on comedy.
A little bit. I mean, I came up with a bunch of material about me and my wife having to live together in close quarters for a year and a half.
Had it been a while since the two of you been around each other like that?
Long?
Because there was a lot of stories going around. Then,
Oh yeah, well,
do I still love you?
everyone, you know, like same with me. You know, my wife and I exist on I was called the pendulum,
Right.
You know, because I'm gone and then I'm back, and I'm gone and then I'm back, and that's healthy, and we're both super independent, so it works.
Yeah.
So when it's not that, and she's working at home, and I'm just home all the time, spinning like a coyote in a pen, wasn't healthy, wasn't good. And also at the end of my, I was getting ready to record a special in 2020 before everything locked down. And I said, does this special even matter anymore a year and a half later? Do I feel like being funny anymore? Because everything's so fucked up. I didn't feel like being funny.
right.
I did.
Yeah. Well, you can't turn it off. But it took getting back on stage. You know, we booked the first shows we did after we were vaccinated was late April. And it took, I hadn't written anything that entire year. I was nothing, because the travel informs my writing too. You know, you got to go do stuff. If all you're doing is getting the mail and petting the cat and trying not to go stir crazy, there's not much to write about that for me.
Right.
Yeah, what do you write about? For a year and a half, I went from the couch
Was sitting in
to the refrigerator.
Yeah, you know.
He explored the house.
Yeah. That being said, when we finally had shows again, I wrote 20 new minutes the week before.
Wow.
Because it's like, oh, I can be on stage again.
I wrote 25.
Of course.
3 days before he beat me to the time. Too. We're very competitive. We're locked in the race.
So even with that, so when you're doing a special, just as talking about that, what's the time, or is there even a time period that you take before you do a special, like a year, 2 years?
Well, typically I try. Well, you got to let the material write it. I think one of the things, talking about Chappelle as an example, Chappelle did 5 specials in 5 years. Who am I to tell him what's right or wrong? I think he could have done 2 or maybe 3 really fucking amazing specials.
Well, Netflix contracted him for 5.
Well, sure. And
so we got all that money
and all that stuff. But like a special a year for 5 years, I think that's 3 too many. I think he could have done 2 really exceptional specials if he hadn't done 5. But, but you got to let the writing dictate that. Sometimes it takes, like this has been now 5 years in between specials, but it should have been 3 because I was supposed to tape last April.
Right.
So that was something that couldn't be helped. And I think it's going to be a better special because of that, because I trimmed some stuff and I added some stuff. So ultimately, cool. But I don't know. How long are you usually 2 to 3 years in between?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years, I think.
2 years.
Mm-hmm. And your last one got the best of New York Times 2020 best comedy special.
I didn't want to say that.
That's why you
had JT.
I'm contractually obligated to mention that. At least,
But I will now, I will now.
Tell us about that.
Well, no, I just got New York Times said my special in 2020 was the funniest special of that year. And that was very rewarding. And who knows comedy better than the New York Times?
There you go.
I mean, did you see their coverage on Syria? It was hilarious.
My favorite part of that, though, I was so proud of him because he's deserved recognition like that for so long. And I said, I was so happy for you. And then later that day, I said, dude, I don't want to tell you this, but they issued a retraction.
Right.
They just issued a retraction, gave it to Hannah Gadsby.
He meant that, Aziz. I'm sorry.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yes,
So
definitely.
do you, when you're doing your sets, do you have in your mind, I want to reach this goal, or I want to be the best comedian in this
That's a good
area? Or is it just authentically?
I'm not a goal. I'm not a goal person.
Okay.
I just I do though really want to obviously produce really good work, whenever I do stand up, but I'm just like, as long as I am really in the moment and really feeling the material and really being honest and authentic, and then see what happens, but I certainly aren't like, okay, this is going to be the greatest, thing ever,
Yeah.
So you're not chasing after anything. It's more or less being in a moment, enjoying.
Yeah.
As I call it, just being.
Right.
And accepting
Which is
it.
hard.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do, to just be, because I do our booking and stuff. So I run a festival, so I'm a planner, and that was something pandemic really made me confront, was like, you can plan all you want. You didn't plan on this.
Oh, that's a good point.
And so it really, and so I'm much better with that now. Like I'm more like in the moment right now, and I can kind of stay. You have to make plans. You have to plan ahead. Otherwise, you have to live your life kind of months in advance. Otherwise, stuff is already booked up, and you can't do it. But that being said, it's also easy to miss out on a lot when you're always just looking down the road. And so I've really tried to, if nothing else, take from that awful year and a half. Be here now.
You could be tyrannized by the future. Like already people are asking about January, April, and I'm like, I don't want to fucking think about that right now. I want to just relax for the holidays, I go caroling.
Do you really?
Yeah. What's your favorite song?
I carol
What's your
in
favorite
LA.
caroling song?
By caroling, I mean I dress up.
There's a little wassailing.
It's a little
He was the original wassailer. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know either. But I sing door to door.
Okay.
In various, like I go to the biggest states in Beverly Hills, and I just press the buzzer on the gate, and I'm like, I'm here to sing for Mr. Cosby, or whoever the fuck it is.
You got a lot of names to choose from. And you
I think that's the funniest.
yeah.
And he's home now, right?
He's home.
Exactly. So ring his bell. Yeah.
Who the fuck is that? Offer him a drink.
So like with
That's a
JT.
Cosby joke.
Yeah.
Out for my train. Just slid that right on in there. No, you did it.
Oh, I'm feeling sleepy. Give me those balls.
Yeah, that's a bit.
Oh, God. Okay. All right, I'm back. So, you got a question?
But you could.
Okay, because I wanted to know, I know y'all had a comedy show yesterday. Was it yesterday?
We did, yeah.
Right, at the Idiot Box. How did that go?
That was Thursday, yeah.
No, the
Oh,
Idiot
it's
Box was Thursday.
Okay.
Great club run by Jenny Stansel, and she's here right now. She's saying, "I see you." That's where we started, and that was wonderful. And then we went to a place called Monstercade in Winston-Salem, and I fucking went after those people. I was like, "Hey, thanks for killing my mother with Camel cigarettes."
Oh, yeah.
You know, because
They were smoking
the RJ Reynolds Corporation.
Yeah.
I was like, "Thanks,
So
you
perfect.
fucks here."
Levity from town to town is what we deliver.
There you go.
And
You know,
Reed, who's laughing in the corner, was at that show. He's
oh, that's right. Reed saw me do
He's a
that
great
shit.
comic. He was on that show also. It was a really fun rock club, and yeah, it was great. I mean, it was really
Yeah. And then we went to Asheville. Well, I'd never been to Asheville, and that was a super cool mountain town. You know?
Yes, it is.
It was fucking cold and pretty. And this place called the Beauty Academy.
Asheville Beauty Academy.
Yeah, it was packed and fun.
Sold out. Yeah, it was great. And then last night we
And
were.
then we ended up in a video store last night.
There's our video in Charlotte, which has a performance space in the back. It's like a retro nostalgia VHS store.
And I was making fun of
different.
all the video nerds.
Yeah,
you
we
know?
try and do weird spots. You know, I mean, especially on like a Sunday. You know, it's like. I'd rather book us in a weird, interesting space that I was sold out than do a club.
I was pretending I was a guy from the neighborhood who would just go into this artsy video store going, what porn do you have?
Where's the back room with the?
Do you have the one where everybody gets fucked?
Do you have glory holes in the back?
I love the voice.
that guy who's sneaking around.
Straight until you're in a haunted hotel. Starts busting it out.
I've seen the one with the pizza delivery. Do you have the one with the plumber? He comes over and fixes something, and all of a sudden he's getting a blowjob. Do you have that one? You should have been there.
Yeah.
I should have been. So what's next? What's next? Because you said that was the end of the tour.
Thank God. Well, I mean, we've been touring a lot.
We're
Yeah.
very tired.
Okay.
So we fly home tomorrow, meaning I go to Austin and he goes back to LA.
Okay.
And then I have to run my hour that I'm taping. I'm doing 3 headlining shows in Austin before I fly to Gainesville, Florida to tape that in the next 2 weeks. And then I fly to LA, and Eddie and I are doing one final show for the year at the Hollywood Improv, right?
Yeah, I'm a regular at the Comedy Store in the Hollywood Improv in LA, so I perform there all the time. And I'm going to do a special Eddie Pepitone and Friends. JT's flying in, and I'll probably have a couple of my famous buddies.
We did one over the summer at this place, Dynasty Typewriter, with like Dana Gould and Carmen Morales and who else? I forget who else was on that, but it was awesome. Just fun, you know. And I'm supposed to do some shows with Brian Posehn before the year ends too, and then that's a wrap on the year. And then we relax for January and February for the most part. And then, you know, we're fledgling, taking. There's some festivals and stuff that people want us to do in March and April, so we're starting to. You know, I handle the booking for that if assuming that he's available and into it. Oh, you have to do New Year's Eve.
Where?
Near Oakland, Alameda.
Okay.
It's comic club.
You didn't sound excited.
Blessing. New Year's Eve gigs are usually good financial gigs, but it's New Year's Eve.
No, it's just because right now I'm in that like
exhausted.
I want to relax for a while, but yeah, I'll be into it once
Once it
Let's see, it's December 30th and 31st. By the 29th of December, I will be ready to go.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I will be like, oh, honey, baby, I got to leave.
When we first started working together, my big thing was I didn't want to wear him out because I'm kind of a work. We go a different place every year. Every
I thought you were going to say because his age. No.
I'm very, I take B12.
I give him one of those Pulp Fiction shots every day. So a Sharpie, I draw those there.
He's right.
Jam it in there. It's like, go!
That's how I get up in every hotel room with a huge needle in my chest.
Yeah. But one thing I was aware of was I didn't want to, wear him out on the first couple of runs. So we did like 10 or 12 days. And after the first 10-day run, I left him alone for 48 hours and I said, all right, so are you missing it? Or are you tired and never really, like you need a break? And he said, I'd go right now if we could. And I was like, I fucking got you because you're a lifer. And that's, because the road it gets in your blood and it's something that it really becomes part of you once you start doing it.
I've already written a song about it.
Yeah, he's a troubadour.
It's just like the road is a fickle mistress.
Yeah.
She can run. No, I'm kidding. See, that's what happens on
stage. Shanty that he won't shut up. But I mean, so we're both exhausted right now.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you. So what's today? Sunday? Monday?
It's Monday.
I guarantee you by this weekend we'll both be going. Wish I was on a ship.
Oh yeah.
How about you? That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So January, February, that's usually your time that you
I don't
take
like
for
traveling in the
yourself.
snow. I don't like going. Well, you're just saying today a promoter from Canada reached out, and I'm like, I'm not going there in February. I'm not going to drive.
I like the cold weather though because LA is so hot.
Oh, sure.
I've been liking
send
this.
me a postcard.
This weather is
Well,
nice.
this weather's great.
It's bracing, I call it bracing. And I'm from a long line of sea captains.
Oh, are you?
Snow for tour though is difficult because if you're driving, it's hazardous, and also you can have all the bells and whistles in place, and then a snowstorm hits and it gets shut down, and you're there anyway.
Right.
The airfare and stuff isn't refundable necessarily, or whatever the deal is, and so that's a bummer. So I usually take January and February largely off.
Okay.
It also makes me miss it. I always tell comics, you get comics doing declarations like, I'm going to quit comedy. Like I'm frustrated. I'm going to quit. And I said, well, just take a break. You don't have to do a grand declaration. Let yourself miss it.
Right.
If you don't love it right now, that happens with any job, right?
A lot of comics are drama queens.
That's it.
Was this one early on? No.
No, I'm more of the drama.
I was going to say. He likes to be the center.
He's not a drama queen either. He's being
I can
full of it. But
at home, I'm a drama queen. I'm like, you don't love me.
just yelling at an ottoman.
I say to my wife, you don't fucking love me.
So is that with time though, as you get more seasoned, meaning early on, do you have that where you're like, I'm ready to quit. I'm tired of this.
The only time I had moments where I was ready to quit, when it was so hard in the beginning. Because when I first started, I toured with 4 other comics. I wanted my own Ramones. I wanted my own kind of group of comics. Right. And so, but we were at a level where nobody had real credits and no one really knew us. And we were doing non-comedy venues. Mm-hmm. So it was very trailblazing, but also everybody was starving. It was like when you charge them $5 or $7 for tickets and there's 4 or 5 of you plus an opening act and you're all in one car and you're sleeping on floors, you make $100, $200 that night, you split that it does not go very far. And I had a moment on the West Coast. I did 5 weeks of shows with a show every night with 1 night off to fly from New York to Portland, Oregon. That was the only night off. And we got there and I had given money to the local on the 2 weeks on the West Coast to rent a car. And he had taken that money and gave it to a friend of his and borrowed his car instead of renting a proper car. And his friend had been living in that car with his dog. Mm-hmm. And it broke down the entire way. Yeah, I never got again, but it was a nightmare. It was just like this walking. It broke down the entire way. And I remember we got to a show in Northern California and there were no posters on the wall. No one knew we were talking. There was like the show was an unknown entity. No one knew there was a show. It was a sports bar. It was just a nightmare. And at the end of the night, the promoter's like, I can give you guys a pizza, but I don't have any money. And we're like, what? And I just had a breakdown. I just like walked into the woods and just stood out there for a while. I was just like, I'm losing my mind. And so,
Oh man.
yeah. Yeah, it was, so that was not like the stuff. Yeah, you look back on those things and they give you like fortitude, but also I would never go back and do that. Like even stuff 6 years ago, now I'm talking 10 years ago. That's what that was. So I'm talking 6 years ago, where I was I quit my last day job 6 years ago, and when I was first starting doing that,
Here we go.
I was doing like 200 shows a year. And I can't do that now.
Yeah.
I would want to do that now.
Right.
Were you doing 200 shows?
Yeah. Well, 200 road dates a year.
200 road
Because when I quit my job, I was doing marketing. I was making pretty good money. I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it hard and I'm going to do it real. And I can't do that now. Like, I don't want to. So I was just adding up. We did like 40 or 50 shows this year, which with pandemic is pretty good because we didn't really start till May or June.
Yes.
But now we'll usually fly out somewhere and rent a car and do 10 or 12 dates, then fly home.
So that was like your darkest moment in comedy, your comedy journey that you just gave us when you're in the woods. Like, do I want to
Yeah, I mean, real early, it was real hard. And, those people too, they were all friends at the time. And now, like, it splinters relationships, like I'm not enemies with anybody, but I don't talk to any of those people anymore. It's just,
That's an enemy.
I'll defer to your Hollywood. It's just that was the main point that I remember going. That and pandemic, where a pandemic it was different though, because I was just like, I don't feel funny, and I don't know if I care anymore. I don't know if I want to be funny anymore.
All right. So what about you, Eddie? Your darkest moment?
I would say birth.
Going down there now.
That early.
I was happy. I don't know if you guys remember before birth, but I was happy in the void.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was happy just in the ether, and then boom, I had a body and I had responsibility. No, I don't know. Darkest moment.
Or the moment where you were like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Probably last comic standing.
Oh yeah, you worked on that show. Yes.
No, I don't want to do this anymore. That's happened a lot. That's happened. No, it has, because I remember one time it was an industry showcase in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Improv, and it was packed with people from the industry, and it was an audition for a big comedy festival called Just for Laughs in Montreal. It's a very high profile festival, and I just ate shit. I bombed so hard for whatever reason. I hated them.
Yeah.
I don't like the industry anyway,
I bet that's why. I know, but that informed why you bombed.
They don't laugh a lot. They purposely don't laugh a lot. And I remember whatever happened that night, I was so pissed. And I just went from the stage to my car, which was parked out front. And I called a friend from New York and just fucking unleashed on that friend, saying that I just fucking hate this. Those are tough to recover from. And it really, bombing on stage, there's nothing like bombing on stage in front of people where the humiliation that you can feel is so visceral that you really don't want any part of. You're just like, what the fuck I'm doing. But now when I never really bomb these days. But I'll have a bad, I'll have not a great show. And now instead of getting depressed about it, I go, I got to fucking work harder. I got to write more. I got to be more on top of shit. I can't just expect to waltz up every show and be like, I'm the funniest guy. Those bad shows always make me realize you fucking have to write. You have to fucking you always be working on it.
Right.
Always be working on the craft and the art form, That's what I realize now.
And what's next for you guys?
Got to tape a special. So I'm going to go run it 3 nights in a row in Austin with my buddy Josh McLean from Memphis, who's a great comic, who's coming in to do support for me on that. Heels. Yeah, great, awesome band. Heels, Memphis, Tennessee. And so that's the end of the month. And then I fly to Gainesville, Florida to tape for 800 Pound Gorilla Records on December 9th. And that's it. Aside from that weekend, we're doing the Hollywood Improv. And that's it for me for a little bit. So we're kind of in a down. Last night was the last night of real road dates.
Okay.
We're kind of in.
And I keep auditioning in LA. I just got a call back for this Nickelodeon fucking animated show. Because I do a bunch of animated characters. I do Reggie on Bob's Burgers. There's a new animated show called 10-Year-Old Tom on HBO Max where I'm in 3 episodes. And so I do a bunch of animated stuff and live action stuff. I'm in a new show that's coming out on HBO about the Lakers. I don't know what they're calling it yet, but I play one of Magic Johnson's dad's friends, factory from Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson's dad worked in a factory, and I got to act with a couple of comedians who were hilarious, Donnell Rawlings, and this guy who just calls himself Earthquake. Who's a very funny dude.
Comedian.
He's very funny, and we were the 3 friends
Can't wait to see that.
in that episode, and they just made fun of me, those pricks. Like, you know. So, you know, I'm gonna. And like I said, I'm a regular at the Comedy Store in the Improv, so I'll be performing. You know, because everybody wants me. You know, it's like, Eddie, make us laugh, Eddie, all that shit. You know,
And you love it.
you see through me, Tiffany. You keep me grounded, baby.
Yeah, but EddiePepitone.com and JTComedy.com.
Oh, you know, that was going to be my next question.
I also
EddiePepitone.com.
Yeah, I also run an online talk show called The Road Live, which is like a streaming show that interviews like musicians and artists and stuff like that. So that 3rd season of that will kick off in January. So that's looming. But that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Definitely.
Eddie and JT on the Broadbelt. First show with the audience.
Loving it.
Picture too.
As always, find us on Broadbelt SpeaX on all outlets. And then, your question. Are you going to do the question?
Oh,
For
I am.
them.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So we have this thing.
Can't let
at
them
the
go
end of
without
the show.
that.
Yeah.
Eddie was trying to get up.
I know. At the end of the show, we like to leave like with being in the moment as of right now and say I am, and then describe what you are, you're feeling right now. So I am happy.
Okay.
See, that's mine. See,
First. I am tired but accomplished.
Oh,
All right.
like it.
I am very grateful that I'm here in Greensboro.
Yes.
I'm very grateful that I'm here in Greensboro with all you really nice people, and grateful that, you know, I get to talk about having a career when so many people, I think, want to be in show business, but you know, they can't for a lot of different reasons, you know. And so I'm grateful that I'm better than people. I'm grateful that I'm better than others. Thank you, Lord, for this bounty.
Like that 11-year-old. That's right. That's right. I'm gonna say I am in the moment.
In the moment. Anybody want to shout it out from the
Yes.
audience? I am.
There you
Okay, that's good enough. I won't put y'all on the spot. Everybody don't like to be on the spot, you know?
Thank you.
But thank you so
Yes.
much for everyone joining Broadbelt SpeaX. Until next time, peace.
Bye.
Yes.
That was your first one.